Some lawmakers are now asking cable companies why they let One America News Network and Newsmax spread disinformation. This says lawmakers are demanding answers from Verizon, AT&T, Comcast, Cox, I never heard of that one, and other cable companies who have done nothing to stop disinformation on One America News Network, Newsmax, and Fox News. So, Representatives Anna Eshoo and Jerry McNerney fired off a series of letters on Monday to the CEOs of AT&T, Verizon, Cox, Altice, Comcast, Dish, Charter, which is Spectrum, Roku, Apple, Google, Hulu. And apparently all 11 CEOs were asked to explain why they had done nothing to help counter the, and I'm quoting now, bigotry, disinformation, and hate speech being circulated routinely by outlets like One America News Network. And they were asked to provide ethical justifications for their apathy, and they're told to respond by March 8th. Quote, what moral or ethical principles do you apply in deciding what channels to carry or when to take adverse actions against a channel? So now you have a situation where Democratic representatives are using the force of government to apply pressure to cable companies to censor and take down the networks that are their ideological opponents. Now, I will say this up front because I think this has to be brought up in the conversation. I view it as obvious that One America News Network, Newsmax, Fox News, they're propaganda outlets, and they absolutely get stuff wrong on a regular basis. I would argue that many of the hosts lie on a regular basis. So in terms of the detrimental effect to the body politic that these outlets have, I don't view that as debatable. I view it as we have a clear-cut answer on that, and the answer is they do have a colossally detrimental effect on the body politic, and they are a toxic force in American life, and they do have to take a bunch of the responsibility, particularly Newsmax and One America News Network, to help feeding the paranoia which led to the storming of the Capitol on January 6th. I think that's true. I think that's unavoidable. There's a lot of brainwashing going on, without a doubt. So they're every bit as bad as the most vituperative Democratic lawmaker would say they are. That's what I need to say about that up front. Now, continuing though, I could not disagree more with what they're doing here. Listen, it is not the job of the government to do this. You have Democratic lawmakers pressuring cable companies to take down, which is effectively censoring or deplatforming outlets they don't like. No. I would argue that, honestly, this is against the First Amendment. Because you're not just talking about, because what's the classic argument? Oh, the cable companies have nothing to do with the government, so they could freely decide to not carry One America News Network or Newsmax. True, but this isn't the cable companies freely deciding to do that at all. This is the cable companies being under pressure from the federal government. So the federal government is applying pressure to deplatform and censor outlets that are their ideological enemies. That's unacceptable. So guys, stop and think about it. Imagine we had a situation where the Republicans are in control and they host a hearing and they bring in the head of YouTube and the head of various social media outlets, and they say, listen, Kyle Kalinske, we say, spreads misinformation and disinformation. Why are you allowing him to do that on your platform? Are you okay with him doing that? What's your ethical and moral reasoning for keeping up Kyle Kalinske? Why would you do that? Tell me why. And I'm putting pressure on you. I'm putting pressure to try to get you to throw Kyle under the bus. In that set of facts, everybody would be like, or at least my audience would be like, Jesus fucking Christ, look, how bad is this? This is clear censorship and deplatforming and unfair pressure. By the way, you want to know what moral and ethical framework we use for this stuff? Freedom of speech, the First Amendment, the Constitution. Government should not be applying pressure to censor or deplatform, period. And I don't care how terrible One American News Network is and Newsmax is and Fox News, although Fox News isn't as bad as the other two, but it's bad still. But I don't care. I don't care how bad they are. It's irrelevant. You can't set up this situation where it's like a ministry of truth, because the second you allow the Democratic lawmakers to deplatform the right-wing outlets, of course they're going to come after nominally left-wing outlets too, and voices that you like. Anybody who's anti-establishment to one extent or another, one flavor of it or another, they're going to come after you. It never stops there. Just like we've seen on social media where they took down some far-right accounts and then boom, next thing you know, Antifa's gone. On Reddit, they take down the Donald, boom, next thing you know, Chapo Trap House is down. I mean, this is what happens. This is what happens. But even if they didn't target the left and they only targeted the right, it would still be wrong. It would still be wrong. It has, as a matter of principle, you need to support freedom. Because I don't trust whoever they would determine is the ministry of truth. I don't trust the judgment of these probably standard corporate Democratic lawmakers. I don't trust them at all, and neither should you. So there is no ministry of truth. There is no way to carry these things out objectively and fairly. You have to lean on the side of freedom. Yes, you can't do abuse, you can't do direct threats of violence, but outside of those very narrow things, you got to let people say whatever they're going to say. So it really is unacceptable. It is unacceptable. They shouldn't be doing this. It's a waste of time, but it shows you this is all they have. In the same way that the right leans into the culture war stuff because they're fucking you economically, the left does the same shit. They're leaning into their side of the culture war, and they're not doing nearly as much as they should be doing, helping you economically. Where are those $2,000 checks, by the way? You're going to have hearings pressuring them to pull down some right-wing cable outlets, and you haven't even given us the $2,000 checks yet? Go fuck yourself, man. This is bullshit. Total bullshit. And it's inexcusable.